realizing that that's what you're doing, stopping yourself, first check your thoughts. Gratitude will 120 million% change your life. So it's a mindset shift. Your brain is in the theta state, and the theta state is where your brain is more suggestible, it's more impressionable, so you're able to reprogram your mind as well. So if you
Today, we're joined by the powerhouse that is Moon Onyx Starr, a celebrated motivational speaker and self-empowerment expert who's making waves in the world of personal growth. She's been featured in top publications like Elle, Marie Claire, The Guardian, and more. Get ready to feel inspired, empowered, and energized.
Snapchat, Sweaty Betty, Face Gym, really big brands I work with. So I've done loads of motivational talks, self-empowerment workshops here. My niche is age empowerment. So my mission is really to help people rewrite the narrative around aging so they can take their power back, turn that fear of aging into excitement, change their perspective and mindset around aging. So I started working as a journalist for India Today, and then I was headhunted for Hindustan Times, which is a major national daily paper.
People say there's so many lies in newspapers.
India is the most...
Welcome back to Take a Seat. This is the #1 channel for mindset and motivation. Today, we are lucky to have a motivational speaker and an empowerment expert. She's got an amazing journey and she's empowering so many people in so many different ways. So please welcome Moon Onyx Starr.
Woohoo! Thank you.
How's it going?
It's going great. Thank you.
You
Good
look
morning.
great. You look great, by the way.
I've got to represent with my vegan style, vegan fashion head to toe.
Okay. What does that mean?
So vegan fashion is essentially cruelty-free fashion. So
Right.
It's all products that do not use any animal skin or fur, or so it's free from wool, free from leather, free from silk. My shoes are Stella McCartney, which are vegan leather. Then I've got my Burberry leggings, which again are all man-made fabrics.
So Burberry are vegan?
No, Burberry is not a vegan brand, but they do have vegan products. So
Okay.
I used to be a vegan fashion blogger back in the day,
Okay.
a few years ago, and I used to really promote more kind of luxury vegan fashion because I wanted to show that fashion can be gorgeous, it can be luxurious, it can be stylish. It doesn't have to be all linen and, gray and beige. It can be fab.
So tell me, how do you get vegan leather?
So it depends. These days, you have a lot of materials that are made from nature. So you've got like mushroom leather, pineapple leather, apple leather. So these are all like actual byproducts of the industry. So pineapple leather is made from the leaves of pineapple.
Crazy.
It's unbelievable. So now, and then again, you have more synthetic materials that are used as well. So those are kind of more have a plastic origin. So obviously not great for the environment. But if you invest in one pair of Stella McCartney shoes, for example, like I'll be wearing these for life. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm going to wear them until they fall apart, and they don't. I've had these already for like years and they're going strong. So
Hey, is she sponsoring you right now?
I
She
should be
should.
sponsored, but no, but Stella McCartney is actually one of it's my favorite brand ever for fashion. And I actually work with Stella McCartney and her
wow.
team. So I deliver a lot of motivational talks for her team and just help them to really step into their power, remember their, gratitude, mindset related work, a lot of, just a lot of like self-awareness and empowerment.
How did that collaboration come about?
So that came about because as I said, okay, I went vegan like over a decade ago, and I initially went vegan. I was vegetarian for most of my life. I grew up in a family where my dad ate meat and my mother was a strict vegetarian from birth. So it was really up to me to choose my own path, and I chose a path of not eating meat when I was like 7 or 8 years of age. And that is because animals were my friends and it just didn't feel right to me. I always felt like a lot of just love and compassion for animals. So it didn't it was conflicting with my values to then consume growing up in America and, consuming hamburgers and pepperoni pizzas. That just didn't sit right with me. So I was vegetarian for many years. Then when I moved to London, that's when I started to learn about the leather and dairy industry. Because as a vegetarian, you still wear leather, wool, etc., and you still consume dairy.
Can I ask, what's wrong with wearing wool?
So wool is actually its own industry as well. So it's a bit like the leather industry. So the animals are very much mistreated when they are, leather. It's its own industry in itself. It's not a byproduct of the meat industry. The leather industry, it's its own. And with wool, the animals are very badly treated when when their wool is being removed. They're sometimes kicked, stamped on, they bleed, they're cut. It's a very atrocious process as well. It's very cruel. So I don't wear wool. Leather, silk is made from boiling silkworms alive, so I don't wear silk either. I'm not saying I'm perfect, in every way, every in every element or aspect of my life, but I just do the best I can. I don't wear any animal products, and I live a fully vegan lifestyle. So that means with my cosmetics, my, skincare, with my food choices, all of that is vegan. So veganism is a lifestyle. So going back to the Stella collaboration and how that happened, I actually when I became vegan, so this was after looking at exposés on PETA. So if anyone is interested in learning more about the leather and wool industries, they can look at PETA and PETA's website. They have a lot of exposés where they've gone in to these farms and factories and they've uncovered the truth behind it. So after learning about that, I went vegan overnight, and then I started developing over time a passion for vegan fashion because I already was interested in fashion, looking good, feeling good through how I dress. And I wanted to then start switching and substituting all of my leather products and wool products for cruelty-free products. So animal friendly products. And then that's when I learned about Stella McCartney. She's obviously a British born brand and, an absolute icon. And her brand is like the only luxury brand that doesn't have any leather whatsoever. So all of her bags, all of her shoes are all made from vegan leather.
Wow, wow, that's amazing. I
Oh
wanna,
yeah, and sorry, and then and I didn't go on about how then we collaborated.
yes,
So I started off as a customer. I got so into her stuff, I became a VIP customer and I would get invited to lots of like events and things. When they had the Stan Smith and Adidas shoe collaboration, Stan Smith and Stella were there and they were signing their shoes. And, I used to get invited to these really cool events. And so I formed a relationship with the brand just from being a loyal customer and passionate about her brand and vegan fashion. And then I ended up years later, once I got into, motivational speaking, retreats, self empowerment, then I ended up actually, pitching my offering to her team, and then eventually, I did, and now I deliver talks at her headquarters in is it Notting Hill or Victoria? I think it's in no, sorry, in Notting Hill. Yeah.
amazing. I mean, how did you get that courage and sort of confidence to go and speak to the owner of such a big brand? Like, what made you go, I can do this?
Well, it was her team, so I approached the team. But I got the confidence because okay, my life all fell into place when I found my purpose. When you find your purpose, what that is, it's you coming back to your true authentic self. When you're in alignment with who you really are, you just blossom because you're authentic. You're being yourself. And when you find that purpose, you're really comfortable with who you are. And that comfort in who you are, that is where confidence can bloom and blossom, right? Because you're being yourself. And if you're comfortable being yourself, you're confident. So my purpose really enabled me to find that assurity, self-assurity of who I am, what I do, what I stand for. And then it was easier for me to go out there and chase my dreams and go out there and contact people and reach out to people who at one point in time I would have thought were out of my reach. But after doing a lot of self work, building myself up from within, then there was nothing that could stop me.
Mhm. There's a quote out there saying the hardest part of growing up is being yourself.
That's true. I love that quote. And it's only in time and with age that you become the person you were born to be. There's a famous quote by David Bowie as well, where he says, age is the extraordinary process of becoming the person you were born to be. And that's exactly what you said, just in different words. So it is with age, because it's only when I was approaching my late 30s that I found my purpose. I was so sick and tired of not living my potential and feeling stuck that I just had to take action and I had to change that reality. And that's when I started to do that inner work and that self work and therapy and things like that. And that's when I was able to just come out of that phase and start unlocking that limitless potential that we all have within us.
It feels like as we grow up, the opinions of others all of a sudden matter so much to us. When you go to your child self and you want to eat at your baby little high chair, if you want to eat, your whole face is covered in chocolate
Mm.
and you've just enjoyed yourself and everyone's gone, and you just don't care. And then all of a sudden, you're this shy, timid person in the school playground going, they might judge me for doing something.
Hmm.
What what is that? Is that a thought of other people's judgments? Is it something mechanical in your own brain that we're supposed to absorb this from other people, this feeling, this energy? You know, why do we allow others' thoughts to become our thing? Because I remember being in school in the playground being called fat boy, and all of a sudden I was judged for having a belly.
Hmm.
You were just a little bit more chubbier, and it took me into my early 30s and going onto stage shredded
Mm.
to then say to myself, I'm not fat anymore.
Yeah.
It made me go to an right extreme because every time I walked into a boardroom, and I've left school now, I've gone into a corporate job, and I want to say something in the boardroom, but the only thing ringing in my ears, don't say nothing. You'll attract attention to the fat boy. Everyone's going to think, why did the fat one ask the question? All of a sudden, I've allowed other people's
Yeah.
thoughts to become something in my DNA. And obviously, I'm nearly, 40 and going into that age where I've come into, hey, you don't pay my bills.
Hmm.
You don't make a difference to my life. And you've gone through a few cycles of, hey, I've lost people in my teenage years. I've lost people in my 20s and in my 30s. But I allowed you back then and your judgment to dictate my life.
Hmm.
Why do you think the humans' behavior allow people to do that? Is it something scientific? Is there a process? Is there a thing behind this?
So that's such an interesting question. It really is conditioning. It's social conditioning. We are the product of our environment, right? So around you, we have certain beauty standards, right? So growing up, the beauty standard was very fixed on the people that you saw in magazine covers, the people that you saw on television and in movies, right? The Tom Cruises, the Naomi Campbells, the um,
J-Lo's.
J Lo's. Like she's actually from another generation because she brought the curves into she's the one who brought all the interest and attention on the curves and the popularity. But in my generation growing up, or even our generation growing up, it was like the Kate Mosses, the size zeros, and that's the thing. So that was what was in trend. That was what was slathered all over the media, all over television. So that was the beauty standard, you see. So then for us, if we had now, there's a little bit more interest in body positivity and embracing your curves and all of that. But then it was very much that size zero physique. So if you didn't have that, then you were considered less than, right? So that's where it came from. So it came from the social conditioning. And it's quite a process to break that down. It really is, because imagine from birth, we're being bombarded with messages from the media of how we're meant to look, how we're meant to act, how we're meant to behave. And it really does infiltrate us on the deepest level. So it really does take a lifetime to undo that conditioning. But the sooner you start, the sooner you can empower yourself, because you're breaking down that cycle of conditioning and you're rebuilding yourself up on your terms, your definitions, your values of what you should look like, how you should behave, what is authentic and natural to you. So it's again a process of undoing that, blocking out the noise, rebuilding ourselves. And yeah, so it is. It's a process, but it's the most important, one of the most important things that we can do to empower ourselves.
Today's episode has been sponsored by Sean Land. We're growing a like minded community on Discord. So if you click on the link in the bio, you can enter it absolutely free. How do you become coachable again at a later stage in your life? When you're coming up late 30s, 40s, even 50s,
Mm-hmm.
it feels like the older you get, you're really fixed in what you believe in. And no matter, oh, yeah, I agree with you, the next day you're back to, I was born like this, I had these conditions put onto me, and
Yeah.
this is the way I'm going to go in my path. And sometimes you can even meet people who don't mean to be, but they are very negative.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was treated this way, my father spoke to me like this, and they would just carry on that same tune. And no matter what you do, you can put a little bit of positivity for a little while, and then they were just like, it's like water. You throw something in the water, it creates splashes, and then it just goes straight back
Yeah.
exactly how it was.
Yeah.
How does somebody say to themselves, or how can somebody be more coachable?
So that's a great question. And the only way is if someone is willing. So, unless the person is willing to change their lives, their mindset, their perspective, if they want to change, they will, but it has to start with that desire. So, if they don't have the desire to change, they're not coachable. It's impossible. It's like same thing if people have some kind of addiction and they're not ready to leave that behind, it's never going to go away. It's that cycle. So the same thing, you have to be willing, you have to be open to it. And I've had people approach me, for coaching and mentoring and things. And it's only those who I can see are really have that passion to change. Those are the ones that I would take on as clients, because those are the ones that are going to have that profound transformation, because they're so passionate about wanting to empower themselves and change their lives. So you have to have that willingness and that passion and that desire to be able to change your life. Otherwise, you'll just carry on the way you are.
Mhm. Where was that moment where you thought to yourself, I'm going to be a motivational speaker? I'm going to be an empowerment expert. When did
Yeah.
that thought cross your mind, and how does somebody become that person?
God, even those words that you just said, like they fill me with fire, they fill me with passion. Like, I feel blessed and grateful that I've been able to find this path for myself and for other people who are also looking. Did you ask for how can other people find that? What was the question? Sorry.
When did that thought come into your mind? That's
Yeah.
what you want to do. How did you train to be that?
Yeah,
You
sorry, I got
know,
so excited with the emotion of and the passion of
I
what
love
I
it.
do that I'm
I
like,
love it because you're so
what was the
real.
question?
You're so real. I love that.
Yeah. So, okay, so how did this come about? It came about because, like I said earlier, I was so fed up of not fulfilling my potential. I had previous careers that were very rewarding. They were very respectable, but they did not fulfill me on a soul level. I did not feel complete. I did not feel like, my heart is just singing all the time like I feel now with what I do. So I was just sick and tired of not having that kind of not living my life with that passion that I desire. I'm a passionate person. I need to live with that passion and energy and enthusiasm for what I do. So during the pandemic is when I kind of hit rock bottom because I had about 5, 6 challenges thrown at me simultaneously. I can take a challenge, I can take 2, I can take even 3, but like to then double it up and give me like, you know, 5, 6 on top of that, it was a lot. And, it was just different issues in my life related to my career, family, relationship, like so many things. And I was at a breaking point. So I was like, this experience can either break me, I can either sink, or I can not just swim, but I can bloody fly. Like what's the choice here? And I'm like, obviously, knowing me, being as resilient as I am because of many challenges through my life that I've dealt with and overcome, I was like, I'm choosing the latter. And I am going to pull myself out of this darkness. I'm not going to allow these external challenges to beat me down. I'm going to rise no matter what it takes. So, what I did was, first thing first, I sought therapy. So I did therapy it was I'm not going to lie, it's very difficult to find a suitable therapist because not everybody gets you, not everybody gets the intricacy of your specific issues and experiences because they haven't lived it. And unless you've lived something, you don't understand. You'll never understand it. So for me, it was very much just finding the right therapist. It was such a process. I must have tried 10 different therapists at least before I found somebody who got me. And I needed to start with the issues that were the root cause of my traumas, right? Because I said that during the pandemic, I had all those challenges. I also had my own internal challenges, which were still living with my traumas and allowing them to impact and affect my day-to-day life. So I had to go back to childhood where the traumas first began. I had a very kind of difficult, tumultuous childhood, and that really impacted me throughout my life.
What do you mean by that?
So just, like the parental relationship, unstable, unhealthy, relationship for like witnessing my parents' marriage, it was tumultuous to say the least. I didn't have a good, stable foundation. And it really rocked my world. Also, my parents' marriage was so bad that they had to separate at some point because living under one roof was so toxic. So they had to separate. And at one point, then my father, when I was still, I think, I don't know, 9 or 10 or something, he left and went to New Zealand, and we were living in New Jersey in the States. And he left, went to New Zealand to start his life over because the issues at home were so bad. Um, and so he decided it's better for him to move there. Now, what he failed to realize is the abandonment that would cause, the abandonment issues that would cause within myself, my sister, the impact and trauma that would inflict upon us. And not just that, it was everything else we witnessed beforehand. And so anyway, so he went to New Zealand because he has his side of the family there. So he has his siblings there and his nieces and nephews. So for him, that was a great place for him to start his life over. And then leaving my mom to raise two young daughters on her own. And my mom got married at 19. She left her university, so she didn't even have a college education. She left her university to get married at 19. It was an arranged marriage. Both of my parents were born and raised in Punjab. And then they migrated to England. My sister and I were born here, then migrated to New Jersey because my dad got a job in New York. So we were raised in the suburbs of New Jersey. And it was that caused further trauma, just witnessing my mother struggle to raise my sister and I on her own. She had to work in a factory, working 12-hour shifts 6 days a week, lifting heavy boxes onto a conveyor belt. That's what my mother did to make sure that my sister and I were good. So I owe my mother everything. Like, she's my hero. She's my greatest source of inspiration. My nanny ji had come from India and lived with us to help my mom. Nanny ji, and they're from, like, they have in Punjab, well, in UP, in India, they have like a lot of farmland. They had a lot of, they were very comfortable. And but my nanny ji doesn't speak any English. So she comes to, and again, she's a housewife. So she comes to New Jersey, lives with us in this small apartment. We used to live in a nice house, like the American home. Then we moved into this small apartment. Nanny ji came and stayed with us. She would go and be a nanny and help people in their homes to support us, help support my mother and us financially. And the money that she earned from that, she actually gave that to my mom to buy a car. So my mom could get around herself as well. My mom would make sure that we were in every single dance class. We learned tap, jazz, ballet, contemporary, modern, lyrical, choreography, gymnastics, swimming, diving, skiing, you name it. My mother made sure that we did not miss a single opportunity. She would suffer from severe migraines from the stress and everything. I remember sometimes she'd be dropping me off to a class, one of my, hobbies, one of my dance classes or something. She'd pull over on the side of the road and vomit from the migraine. And I used to suffer from severe migraines as a child too because of the stress.
Wow.
So this is like, you asked, what was that trauma? What was it? It's very deep rooted, and it's not just, there's a lot more to it as well, but this is just kind of.
Your dad took no responsibility?
Um, I guess he was in survival mode himself because he lost everything during this process of, separating and moving countries and starting over. So he was in survival mode. He had to start his life over as well. Um, my therapist encouraged me to ask my father, like, why did you leave us? It was so hard. Why did you leave? So thanks to therapy, she encouraged me. And the therapist that I eventually found was somebody who specializes in the issues that I went through. So I always recommend that if somebody is seeking therapy, like, go to someone who really knows that area and who's lived it themselves and overcome it. So she said, have a conversation with your father. This is during the pandemic. We had a video call. she's the one that it's thanks to her. And she's like, just ask him, just like, just tell him how you feel and ask him, like, this really hurt me. Like, why did you leave? This really wounded and scarred me. And that manifested in many bad relationships with men in my life because of everything that I witnessed, and everything I experienced with my first relationship with a man, which was with my father. So I asked him, and he said that if he didn't leave, he wouldn't be here today. And wow, that gave me goosebumps. And it gave me more compassion and understanding from his perspective. Because, of course, I was seeing things more from my mom and mom's perspective and my perspective. But it was good to know that he did what he needed to do to survive. So he needed to leave for his own mental health and sanity and whatever. But it's a very, very complex, layered um, situation. Nothing is straightforward, right? It's very, very layered. It's very,
What does that do to a woman when the strong man in their life who's the breadwinner all of a sudden disappears, gone to a different country? You feel, where's he gone? And you don't see him,
mm,
and you grow up. What sort of trauma does that cause in terms of you're meeting somebody now?
wow. Well, it left a hole in my heart for sure. It left a hole in my heart. I could never fully love. I couldn't love because I had very pure love as a child. And then when he left, it really hardened me. And I just created so many walls to protect myself from never experiencing that kind of pain again of like the man I loved and looked up to and idolized, my father, leaving me, my sister. And it created, I had this void. I felt like I could never love. I never thought I'd really love. And I wasn't that self aware then as well. But um,
See this barrier that you've put up.
I didn't really see it that clearly. I could feel like hardened, but I don't think I could see it that clearly as you do with age. That's another thing that comes with age. It's wisdom, and it's clarity. You have more openness to be self-aware and reflect. So you asked, how did this manifest in my relationships with men?
Did they ever say to you that, why are you so,
Oh
why do
yeah.
you have a
Okay,
bad?
my sister used to call me the ice queen because I was very icy. I was very closed off in a way. Like she was still so loving and like her heart would just like ooze love and warmth and affection. And I just wasn't like that. I just really closed off. So I never wanted to be abandoned again after that experience. So, what I would do is I would only ever go for guys that I felt were more invested in me, that were more kind of guys that were absolutely smitten and head over heels for me, that's what made me feel safe. They had to love me more because then they wouldn't leave me. If they loved me so much, obviously, this is very unhealthy. This is not, I do not recommend that at all. This is the wounded, traumatized version of myself that I've now worked on to heal that. But I would only ever go for men where I felt like they had to be so into me and they were never going to leave me.
Right. I feel that that balance is wrong,
Yeah.
because I've always felt that a woman needs to love you, but love a man more. I'm not even going balance.
Okay.
I've always thought that a woman needs to love a man more than he sort of loves her.
Why do you think that?
I feel that women are more emotional and they're more connected that way. Men are less emotional. Men don't need a lot. They really don't. They need sort of three sort of basic things. They want their belly full. That makes them happy. They don't want an earful. They don't want to hear like nagging and stuff like that. And yeah, I hope my mum's not watching, but they just want their balls drained, really. And them three things is men are just very simple creatures. And if you've got a woman who's giving you that security, why are you gonna leave? Why are you gonna go off with somebody else when you sit down together, you have good food together? She's not doing your head in, so he makes it very simple. I'm gonna go to work, I'm gonna smash the hammer, come home, here's the money, we're all good. And he's satisfied. So why is he gonna need to sort of look anywhere else? But I feel if you love a woman more, I just feel personally, I feel that it's a bit unattractive for a woman. That if a man's all in love with you and all over you, and she doesn't feel that she could lose you, I think genetically on a different vibration level, I think a woman would be like, this is too much. That's how I feel.
Yeah, so this
Um,
is what I'm saying. Like, with your theory of women should love the man more, I feel like, I don't know, I feel like it should be a balance of mutual love and respect. That's really what I feel. I feel like you should both love and appreciate each other and give each other what one another needs, and that's it. It's simple.
it
It's
is
simple.
simple. It is
This is what I feel.
simple.
So with my version of myself was my unhealed version. I would never be like that
Yeah,
today.
yeah,
That's what I was saying
yeah.
before. Like, I would never recommend that to anybody. This is
Yes,
the wounded version of myself
yes.
that was living in my trauma, and I had to work very hard to overcome that.
How do you do that? How do you pull that barrier
So I
down?
started with
Because
the
you start showing your vulnerable side, then don't you?
exactly. I never wanted to be hurt again. I never wanted to feel that pain again of somebody leaving me like that. Although it did happen again. It did happen again. But
Wow.
yeah, so it did happen again, but I never wanted to experience that. And even though I ended up meeting somebody who was head over heels for me, was absolutely smitten, you know, he ended up leaving me as well. And so I was abandoned again. And imagine then the effect that had on me. Then again, you kind of more wounds and it becomes deeper, the pain becomes deeper. And so it took me a very long time to undo that. It started with the therapy, right? So the therapy was very healing for me. And it wasn't just that, it was other inner work. It was like looking at my shadow side, like looking the self awareness. Everything starts with self awareness. So even to seek out therapy, you have to be self aware. You have to know, like, reflect, stop, pause. If you notice a reoccurring pattern of behavior in yourself that you don't like, pause, reflect, journal, like observe. What is this? What is this within me that is causing me to behave like this? Right? So when you have that, and then you need to have that desire to change it, to enhance your life and improve your life. So then that's when you would seek out support, like from a therapist or a coach or a mentor. That's when you would take those next steps.
If there was a short answer on how to press that reset button of things not happening in your life, what would it sort of be that people need to go through that path?
What do you mean things not happening in your life?
So, it, just like you said, conditions were put on you where your father left.
Hmm.
It caused trauma, it caused problem in your relationship. If somebody's on that path of hurt, pain, and there's a specific part of their life that there's conditions there because things have happened in the past and that fear barrier comes up, is there a method that they need to sort of go down to try fix it, if that makes sense?
So it is exactly what I just described. And it's not, there's no like magic button that will just help one reset themselves, sadly. Because imagine we have had years of trauma, years of pain, conditioning as well, years of becoming the person that we've become today, years of building behavioral patterns. So, just as it's taken us years to build these and form them, it takes years to undo it as well. So, even though I've dealt with and healed so much of my early childhood trauma and trauma caused even later in life, there's still so much that I am yet to address, yet to explore. Like, at 41, I've lived many, many lives. I've had so many things I've experienced. There's so much that I still have to deal with. And even the childhood stuff, it doesn't go away overnight. Like it's still process. I've noticed that, even though I've done so much healing work with my relationships with men, still I'll notice triggers. Let's say if I'm talking to somebody that I like, I'll still notice little things where I'm trying to, like feel safe. And the way that I communicate or the way that I notice these things, but that's the key is the self-awareness that I said. So now I can notice and I notice where I've gone wrong and I'm able to tweak my approach. I'm able to process. Okay, I didn't like those triggers resurfacing. It's normal for that to resurface. I didn't like it. So let me course correct. Let me fix my behavior, right? So and it's good. We need these triggers to be able to learn and grow. Otherwise, we won't know if what is going, we don't know what issues we're still carrying if they're just dormant. We do need these situations to also help us see what we need to see.
I noticed the self-awareness coming up a lot. Like you need
Yeah.
to look in the mirror.
Yes.
Are people not doing that?
No, the reason why we have so many problems in the world is because people are not self-aware. Like they don't reflect. We don't look at our behavior. We don't look at what is causing us to behave this way. Where does it come from? Self-awareness is definitely, so I think now there's a little bit more awareness of self-awareness. We're becoming more self-aware, or there's just a little bit more talk about it now that personal development. I think after the pandemic, people really started working on themselves more. It really sparked that bit of interest in spirituality and personal development, and people are seeking more, and they're seeking answers, they're seeking meaning in their lives. And to seek all of that, you do need to first start with yourself and look at yourself, right? Because we always find the answers within. We just need to look within.
So where was do you know when you start on your healing journey? So when you're
Mm-hmm.
speaking to your therapist, then you start becoming more self-aware why certain things happen or learn the behavior.
Yeah.
And then do you get this sort of eureka moment that, oh, I got it, why this is happening?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah, it was like that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So literally it was like that. So she was like, they don't tell you like this is that, this is that. Like they don't analyze your situation. They might just ask a provocative question. And it just helps you then you yourself are working things out with them. They're holding space for you. A good therapist will hold space, ask you the right questions for you to work it out yourself. So then I was like, it was those kind of aha moments. Oh, wow. Okay. I idolized my father so much growing up as a kid. As a kid, I didn't see this truth of him, about him. I didn't see him in this light or whatever it is. So there were a few eureka moments, absolutely, where I'm like, oh, wow, things make sense now. Things, I can put things into perspective.
Mhm. So while this was going on at home, what did your professional career look like? So what was you doing in school, going up into high school sort of things? What sort of subjects was you studying and going into?
So in the States, like you have set subjects you can't choose, and I was only there until the age of, I think it was like I just turned 15 or so. And then I decided to move to New Zealand to live with my father because, to be honest, it was a difficult home environment with my mother, like seeing her struggle so much to raise these two rebellious teenagers, American teenagers, someone who's never smoked a cigarette, never drank a sip of alcohol, never touched meat, nothing in her whole life. She grew up on a farm, went to a private boarding school for girls, and in India, And then having this culture shock and having these two rebellious teenagers who are like, wanting to hang out with boys and, wanting to smoke and drink and all these things. It was very difficult for her to deal with that. And it was a culture shock. And, I was doing all those things that rebellious teenagers, or just not even rebellious, just teenagers do growing up and experimenting. Cigarettes, alcohol, whatever. I was doing those things and wanting to like hang out with boys and all that. And it was way too much for my mom to handle. She was the best mom, so grateful, but it was hard. Like, it was overall hard. Also, going from a comfortable middle class family life, like with my dad, my mom, all of that, and not having to really worry about money. And then the opposite occurs where money is an extreme issue. At some point, we had to get those like free lunches at school. And I can just remember like the shame of having to, all of my friends are from these like Jewish backgrounds, and they all have like money. Like, my friends are from all, it's so multicultural America. Russians, rich Russian father who's like an alcohol tycoon, whiskey tycoon or something, then, or probably vodka, right? Russian uh, alcohol tycoon, and this and that. Like, these friends of mine who have these big houses, and they're they have so many comforts, and money's not an issue. And then, not to say I was the only kid with money issues, there were many, but this is your world, like it's your reality, and that's huge as a kid. So for me, I remember like being so embarrassed having to be in the lunch and like subtly, how can I subtly like tell them that I'm on the free lunch scheme without my friends hearing me who are also in line with me to pay for their lunches. Like, the amount of humiliation, and it really messed up my money mindset. Like, growing up, I started really kind of feeling very indifferent about money. So that's another thing I had to overcome. So
What do you mean indifferent about money? What do you mean?
so I started like not hating money, but not liking it and rejecting it. It's like I was very indifferent. It's like money meant nothing to me. I didn't care about it. I didn't care about a high paying job. I just never really wanted, I never had a desire to make money. I never really appreciated how important it was, because it was such a struggle for a portion of my life. And it caused so much like humiliation and embarrassment for me as a child. Even though my mother made sure we had like great clothes, she made sure whatever money she was earning, she went from working in the factory to studying and then becoming a dental assistant as well. So upgrading, empowering herself, upgrading her life in whatever little way she could. She was, doing that. She'd always make sure we had the most, but there was still, money was such an issue for us. And again, like living in this tiny apartment. Oh man, I haven't told anybody this, but like we had a 2-bedroom small apartment in New Jersey after my dad left. And um my my sister is 2.5 years elder to me. So my mom gave my sister 1 bedroom for herself. And then my mom and I shared the other bedroom, and we had bunk beds. And so I remember when like friends came over and they thought it's so weird. They're like, "Where is the third bedroom? Like, where does your mom sleep?" Or, like they just, and I used to lie, I used to make up stories. There are so many things. So yeah, like I said, there was just so much embarrassment and shame around money that I started to reject it. So when I was choosing a career path for myself, some people would do the opposite. They'd be like, it would fuel them to then want to make loads of money. For me, it just made me dislike money and like just not care about it in that way, like not appreciate it. Because I felt there was a lack. So I just was, and then I had a lack mindset for scarcity mindset for many years. And that's another thing I had to overcome, was building a financial abundant mindset. So it's another thing I've overcome, another thing. So that's the thing. I could have lived in that scarcity mindset. I could have lived in my trauma. I could have keep on continuing that cycle of toxic relationships with men. I could have kept on going, but I decided no more. Enough is enough. I'm breaking that cycle and I'm going to better my life. So if I can do it, you can do it. You can do it. Anyone can do it. You know what I mean?
So when you moved to New Zealand, how long did you stay there for?
So, okay, yeah. So as I was saying, I then things were very tough. That's the reason why I decided to move. And by this stage, my dad was a bit more settled in New Zealand. So first, my sister moved to New Zealand. If she hadn't moved, I don't think I would have ever got the idea to move. So first she moved, and then about a couple years later, maybe, I decided to move as well.
Did you not feel guilty leaving your mum?
I did. I did feel guilty. Of course I did, leaving my mom. I was 14 at the time. I did feel guilty, but at the same time, I felt like I needed to do what was best for myself. So,
Quite mature thinking at 14.
yeah, I guess I was always like, as they say, an old soul, but to me, that's an oxymoron because we're all old souls. Like, and I believe that, we've been reincarnated many, 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 many times over, thousands and thousands of times over in all different life forms. So we're all old souls. But I always felt I was always like mature beyond my years. I started writing poetry in my single digits, like age wise. I must have been like 7, 8. I would write really mature poetry, questioning the meaning of life. Like, why are we here? Like, what is the purpose? Like, I'd keep these diaries and I'd write so much poetry. And a lot of my poetry was dark as well because I was growing up in a dark environment.
Wow.
It was dark. Like, there were times I didn't want to live as a child as well.
Wow.
Yeah, sorry, that went deep real fast, but I feel, I don't know, I feel comfortable sharing this with you. I feel like you create a space which has substance. So, yeah.
It's something that a lot of people are going through. It might not be as bad, it might not be as good, but people are going through this, and this is why we want to share these messages that it's okay. These
Yeah.
things do happen. It's okay.
Yes.
There is a way out as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. If I went from being that child that experienced so much darkness and at some points didn't see the light at the end of the tunnel, if I went from that to my most empowered self at 41 and my life is just beginning and I'm so excited about the future and what it can bring. So if I'm at this place, anyone can do it at any time in their life. It's never too late. It's never too soon. You just have to want to change. That's it.
How is life different in America and in New Zealand?
Yeah, and sorry, you asked how long was I in New Zealand. I keep going on tangents. So I moved to New Zealand. I think, just turned 15 or so. I was there for 8 years. So I did the rest of my high school, university, and then I did my specialization, which was in journalism. And then my adventure did not stop there. I ended up moving to India to explore my culture and my roots. And that's where I worked as a journalist for 6 years. I lived and worked in India.
Where in India? Because India's a massive.
It's massive. So I'm Punjabi. I'm a Punjabi Kudi, by birth, balle balle. I do think Punjabis have the most fun, so I'm allowed to say balle balle.
It's balle balle.
Yeah, balle, like, let's go, let's party, woo. But
Oh,
for me, balle, it's not about like drinking or partying. It's about like an energy for life. It's a zest for living your best life always. Because why wouldn't we? Right? So I lived in Chandigarh. The reason being is my grandparents were living in Chandigarh. So Dadaji and Dadiji, for those who don't know, that means your fathers. Those are the names titles that we give our father's parents. So our grandparents on our paternal side, Dadaji is grandfather and Dadiji is grandmother. You know this as a fellow Punjabi and Desi. Um,
you say you don't speak much Punjabi, so how did you communicate?
So I was fortunate for that India is the most English is the most widely spoken language after Hindi. Like, so English is like the most spoken in the world as a second language. English as a second language in India, it's the most widely spoken and common and prevalent language. So I was fortunate to move to India where most people speak English. And I ended up writing for English language publications as well. So I was okay. And at that point, I was like, I moved at 24. Um, and I wasn't very confident in myself or picking up languages. So I also just didn't make much effort to pick it up because I didn't think I could. So that was a limiting belief. And it's only last year that I actually started taking Hindi lessons to challenge myself. And this is one of my steps as an age empowerment expert. Age empowerment is my niche, actually, as a motivational speaker. That's what I I'm spreading the message about age empowerment. So, one of my steps is having a growth mindset and that, like, passion for learning throughout your life and challenging yourself continuously, because that's what's going to keep your mind sharp. That's how you're going to grow new neural pathways. So you keep moving forward and keep unlocking your potential. So yeah, I was in Chandigarh. I wrote for when I moved to, so I was living with my grandparents, and when I first moved there, I didn't have my visa because I'm like have all these other Western nationalities, but not, not the Indian one, right? Because I had never spent any, like, never grown up there, and so then I worked for free for the first 6 months.
For who?
Okay, so my Dadaji, he was in the Air Force, so he's a disciplinarian. I'm not going to go to India and just, have a gaiety, like, just have a chutti and just have a holiday. I'm not there for a holiday. I've moved now to Chandigarh. So that's right down to business. So Dadaji's like, after like a week of me being there, he's like, I think you should start looking for a job now. So it was immediate that I started looking for work, and then I didn't have my papers. So I used to write articles for free, like contribute them to the Tribune, to Indian Express. So these kind of big national daily papers. I was just contributing articles, and my grandparents were very comfortable financially, but because they experienced, like, they lived through the World War as well, and Dadaji actually fought in the Second World War in the Air Force. So they experienced rations, they experienced, having very little during those times. It made them, again, not big spenders, so they weren't about that com- cushy life, as we say. They weren't about that like comfortable life. They weren't about like the luxuries. They were still about doing things the hard way, working hard, doing everything themselves.
Sounds like my dad.
Yeah, right. It's the generation and the time they grew up in. But so they didn't have like a car, like a driver and a car. My grandfather would drive everywhere himself. Till the very end of his life, he would still be driving until he couldn't anymore. So I would get around for my stories on cycle rickshaw, auto rickshaw, or one of my cousins would give me a ride on the back of his motorbike somewhere to go and do an interview for something. And so that was like my experience there. And then after 6 months, India, takes a long time to get your paperwork sorted, right? So finally got my work visa. And then I applied for a job at India Today, which is like a huge magazine in India. And my Dadi ji, she traveled with me on the train, Shatabdi train from Chandigarh to Delhi for the interview at India Today. It was like a half day interview. I then met the editor at that time. Dadiji came with me, waited for me, in the reception while I'm going through all my interview process. I got that job. So I started working as a journalist for India Today. And then I was headhunted some years later. I think it was like maybe a couple years later for Hindustan Times, which is a major national daily paper. And I was a features writer. So that's like for the magazine section. I like to write longer in-depth articles on like culture, lifestyle, could be entrepreneurship, it could be travel, it could be music, food, celebrity, whatever. So I was a features writer, and then
What does
I
a features writer do?
so that's what I just said. So we write full length, so longer length articles that are more in depth about, and it depends. You could be a features writer for different subjects, but mine was more like lifestyle related, right? So it could be like I would interview people like you actually in when I worked for Hindustan Times and India Today actually as a features writer. So someone like you, like your success story, rags to riches story, and then I do like a profile on you, your story, really bring it to life. So how you're doing with me and bringing out my story, I would do that, but in written form, right? And
How much is it true, Moon, of the fact that, you know, people say there's so many lies in newspapers, people lie and bad news sells. Sort of, did you notice a culture when you're working for these companies that, hey, that wasn't quite true and they've taken a snapshot of something or want me to write an article or vlog or something that doesn't feel like that fully happened?
so ironically, I don't read the paper or watch the news anymore. So that answers your question. I don't, because I feel like it's a lot of propaganda. And I'm not talking about these papers. I only stopped reading it and consuming the news when I moved here. I used to watch the BBC every single morning. It's when you kind of have more awareness and you kind of start thinking for yourself and you undo the conditioning, and then you kind of free yourself from these cycles and these patterns and what you've been told, you kind of break free from it. So I don't actually I do believe that the news is it's propaganda. There's always an agenda. When I was writing for those publications, I was not in the news section. I was in the features. It was more lifestyle related. So I wasn't privy to that so much. But again, every paper will have its own angle to it, its own agenda, of course, 100%. But I was writing about things that I wanted to write about. And as I grew in the company, I became the features editor for the northern region of India. So that was quite a senior position at Hindustan Times. And so I could then pretty much curate the whole magazine section. What are we going to write about? I could assign stories to the journalists on the team, um, approve story ideas, all of that. So we did that with a lot of love and passion and enthusiasm. But I did, as a journalist, one thing I realized is we are always searching for material. We always need content. So sometimes we feature people that may not, be the best candidate, but it's because we're so desperate to fill those pages that sometimes people did get in there that maybe didn't, I wouldn't say maybe it wasn't their time to be
Yeah.
there. Maybe it's premature,
I like
you know?
that. That was a good way to put
Yeah.
it.
Maybe it was premature. They might have been better suited in that article or in that publication a few years on, you know, but we are constantly, like daily, we have to fill those pages. So that's a lot of pressure. And you do sometimes create stuff for the sake of it because you're trying to fill the pages. It's a lot of pressure.
What are the main differences between these newspapers?
In terms of, I mean, for me, there wasn't much. I only like was employed by two. And one was completely a magazine, one was a newspaper with the magazine section. So for me, I was still writing about, it was all similar topics. So for me, there was no difference. It was like, I'm still writing cultural related things, travel related things, lifestyle, celebrity. At one point, I remember it was Karishma Kapoor. She was traveling to Chandigarh and her agent contacted me saying, we'd love for you to ride in a car with Karishma and accompany her wherever she was traveling to
Wow.
and interview her one to one. We'd love for you to do it. And because I've never been somebody who's been intoxicated by celebrities, it didn't actually appeal to me. And so I gave that opportunity to one of my team members.
Wow.
I was like, I don't really need this experience. Do I regret it now? I wouldn't say regret it, but it actually would have been nice to sit down with Karishma. Yeah, Karishma. It was Karina and Karishma. I get them confused. It would have been nice to sit down with Karishma and have a chat with her. But I think, to be honest, in my mid to late 20s, I'm not in that. I would rather do it now when I have the wisdom, the life experience, the maturity that I have now. I would really appreciate an experience like that. Just getting to know a woman who's also been through a lot, who also has been through a journey. And I'd like to unpack that with her at this time in my life now, where I'd actually understand and relate to it better.
So Karishma, if you're watching.
So Karishma, call me.
Let's talk.
Let's talk. The Gen Zers, I heard that if you say answer the phone, have you seen this viral trend?
Not
So
yet,
this
apparently.
with the age thing. Okay, so how would you, if you're taking a phone call, what would that look like? Go. Right now, like do the hand gesture. Ring, ring, ring. Hello?
Hello?
No, don't use your phone, just
Oh.
use your hand.
Oh, hello?
Yes. Hello. Okay, so how would a Gen Zer do it?
Yo, what's good? I don't know.
Yeah. Hello. They go like this.
Oh,
They
no
go
way.
like this.
They go like this?
Yeah.
I'll do that.
Yeah, we do this because this is our generation because we didn't have
Wow.
these smartphones,
So they
right?
like pick up the phone.
It's so
Bamba.
interesting.
Bamba.
Yeah.
Can I ask, how much do you get paid in India being an editor in a
Oh
newspaper?
God, I don't even remember. But as journalists in general, you do not get paid well. It's such a highly respected job and position in society. It's so highly respected, but it's so poorly paid. It's a bit like being a teacher. It's like you're providing so much value. You're doing so much. It's such a respectable position, but are you being paid according to the worth of your role? No. And that's the same for journalists. It's print media, that is. I'm not talking about television or broadcast, but print media is not paid well. It's paid very, very poorly. And so I wasn't getting paid much. I can't remember now, but it wouldn't have been more than something like 30 to 50,000 rupees per month, I think.
30,
At that time, this was, I'm
30
talking over 10 years ago, though.
30 to 50,000 rupees.
Yeah, 50,000. That
50,000 rupees.
something
so that's
like that,
what? So it's like
rupees.
£500 a month.
Yeah, so it was something like that. I don't remember. Like, maybe I started on 30, maybe it went to 50, maybe it increased. I don't remember. This is a very rough ballpark
Was it
figure. And
money?
remember, I started 16 years ago in India working as a journalist. So I'm talking about at that time 15 years. So I don't know now what are the rates.
Right.
Yeah,
And
but it wasn't much. It was like equivalent to maybe I don't even think I would ever have gotten to, maybe, I don't think I would have ever gotten to even £1,000 per month if we convert from rupees. But you can't convert because it's different, right? You can't rupees and pounds.
Yeah.
There's no comparison.
So was it enough for you to survive on, basically?
Well, I was always living with somebody. It's not like I was living on my own. I was living with my grandparents. And then I ended up in another live-in situation, which we haven't explored that. Um, so I ended up living elsewhere as well with people.
Right.
Yeah. So, well, I got married in India, and so then I lived with my in a joint family with my in-laws and my husband as well.
At what age?
So I got married at the age of 27.
Right. And obviously, you said, from previous where your mum was from, her cultures, you were born in, you're born in UK, but moved, to New Jersey.
As a
You
baby.
had Western cultures.
Hmm.
You've then moved, to New Zealand. So, you're traveled, young girl, freedom, come to India, obviously, different cultures, different traditions. How did that affect things?
Absolutely. So I was very much a Westerner, but someone who loved my culture. Not always. I didn't always love my culture. I rejected it for the early years of my life until teenage years. I rejected my ethnicity because I was bullied for it and made to feel less than because I was Indian. So I used to be ashamed of that as well. But it's only when, again, with age, you become a bit more confident. Everything takes time. So when I first visited India in my adult years, my grandparents took my all of the cousins from New Zealand on a tour of India, and I must have been around 20. I think I was 20. And that's when I really fell in love with India. I was like, wow, this place is so intoxicating. It's so magical. It's so diverse. It's incredible. Like the food, everything about it. And for me, it was the spirituality. It's the faith that people have, the faith in, there's just a vibrational energy of India, and it is intoxicating and it's magnetic and it's magical. And that's why so many Westerners fall in love with it, because it has that special energy and it's colorful. It's just, India is just incredible India. The campaign, Incredible India? It's that in 2 words. So um, I ended up being really fascinated by my own culture. Uh, but living in India is a different story because raised a Westerner, and then you're in a country that's more conservative. Luckily, I'm very adaptable, and it could be because at this point in my life, I've already lived in different countries. I've already started my life over. I've experienced different types of culture and people. So I was very adaptable, and I'm able to make the most of whichever situation I'm put in. Which even New Zealand wasn't like my cup of tea culturally. I never felt like that was for me. I never felt like that was my place or like I really vibed there.
Why? What
Um,
is New Zealand like, if you can say it in a nutshell? Because to me, it seems like a small island with a lot of more nature, with some whale watching going on, and your neighbors are just down the road or something.
it's
That's
a
how it
lot
feels like.
more developed than people may realize. So you've got my family lived in Wellington. So my dad lived in Wellington, which is the capital city of New Zealand. And then I did my uni in Auckland, which is like the most metropolitan city, very buzzy, quite a cool city, actually. If I had to live anywhere in New Zealand, it would be Auckland, I'd say. Wellington, they call it the arty farty city. It's like a bit more like, I wouldn't even compare it to East London because it's not that alternative as well, but it's just a bit more like people are more into their art and culture. You've got like Peter Jackson's, like the creator of Lord of the Rings, his whole like filmmaking company based there, like all of that. So it's very much more like a lot of like music, culture, art, and stuff. That's Wellington, and it's also the hub of politics in the country, being the capital. And then Auckland is like a bit like it's more like city vibes, you know? It's got more of that let's say Sydney feel to it, where you know you've got more of a buzz. And so I liked living in Auckland, but you know, when I moved there as a teenager, my dad decided it would be a great idea to send me to an all girls private school. And I just come from America, going to a co ed school, wearing whatever you want, no uniform. And now it's like Anglican school. So it's a religious school, it's private school, all girls school, uniform. So, firstly, there was that. And coming from America, you wear mini skirts, crop tops, like that's normal growing up as a teen. And it's like the weather is hotter there as well. In New Zealand, I remember wearing like a mini skirt at some point, and some of my not to school. We were doing this fashion show for school, and I was wearing a mini skirt for this fashion show. And some of the girls who were 1 year above me were like calling me a slut for that. So it's a bit more reserved, a bit more conservative, at least at that time. And I'm talking about now that I was there when I was from 15. So this is again like over 15, 20, 30, 30.
25
Yeah,
years.
25 years ago, 25 years ago. So this is another time as well. Like now I can't comment because I haven't been living there, but at that time it was a bit more reserved, a bit more conservative. The kids start everything later. In America, you start experimenting with like drugs, alcohol, smoking from very young age. Yeah, very young age. Like I'd say 13, 14, 15, some people even earlier. You start experimenting with all those things. Whereas in New Zealand, it was a bit more like latter teen years, you know, you're kind of like more towards end of your high school. Like they do get into drinking and smoking earlier, but the drug part, I remember people got into much later. So it's just, yeah, it's a different lifestyle, but they do have a culture of binge drinking in New Zealand way more than they do in America. Yeah, binge drinking is bad in New Zealand. Um, so
Do
at
you have a
that,
big Asian community there as well, or
yeah. You definitely have a big Asian community. At my school, though, there were not too many Indian kids that I can recall. Not too many Indian kids at my school. I actually didn't have any Indian friends really.
that ever a thing that people did anyone ever look at you and said you're different?
Yeah, again in New Zealand, I still did feel I think it was more my own insecurity because in America, I was bullied a lot for being Indian. Yeah. So then when I moved to New Zealand, I was already ashamed of being Indian. So that was already a thing. So I think any little thing people might have said, it might have hit me harder. But I still felt, and also New Zealand, like most of the girls are like really tall and blonde, you know, blue eyes, blonde hair, that kind of thing, very tall, a bit broader physique. I'm very, you know, Indians were very petite and small and stuff. So again, you know, you already feel a bit different in that respect. Um, so I would just say America, it was like it's a very like friendly, outgoing, vivacious, dynamic culture. And then going to New Zealand, it's like conservative. People are a bit more reserved and shy. People need alcohol to be more confident, you know, to interact. Like male female interaction would only happen with alcohol. So it's a bit like here, actually, you know, where they need, people rely a bit more on alcohol. I feel like in America, you have a lot more confidence. You don't need those things. You don't rely on those things.
Where do you think that culture comes from in America? What makes people be more confident there? Is it the American dream?
Yeah, it really is that American dream. I think it's just because people have come from all over the world and made like done big things with their lives. And it's just, yeah, I would say it must be just that American dream. Like it is, you can, everything is just larger than life in America. And also, this education system is such, you are literally groomed to be a dynamic person. You're encouraged, not encouraged, you it's compulsory to do extracurricular activities. It's not like an option in New Zealand or even here, I guess, or other places where it's, I don't know about here, only the places that I've grown up in, but a lot of the other cultures and countries, it's a choice if you want to do a hobby, an extracurricular activity. In America, it's compulsory. You have to do that after school. Join, like my sister was on the debate team, environmental club, legal club, this club. They've got all these clubs. As I said, we were raised like doing every kind of dance class you could do. You're also, you have to play an instrument, you have to like learn a language. Like these things are all compulsory. So it's a lot of the grooming as children. That's why I am very grateful that I grew up in America, because I do like believe that is why I, part of the reason why I am who I am today, because of that foundational upbringing, like being there from the age of 1 to 15. That's all that foundational part of my life. And I was able to take that on. And then moving all over the world to all these conservative cultures and societies like New Zealand and India, it dulled me down a lot. I really went into my shell. I lost so much of my confidence. And now I'm back to that person I was in America. So I do believe that our authentic selves are that pure, innocent child that we were, and that child that's always within us. And it's just coming back to your true childlike self. And that's your true self. So now I feel like I am back to that confident kid that grew up in the States that thought she could do absolutely anything.
Mm, love that. So when you went to India and you became an editor, what changed for you to want to move from there?
So that wasn't a choice I would have made without a catalyst. Like I needed something to provoke that change. So as I said, I ended up getting married in India. So when I
To an
was
Indian?
to an Indian, so when I was living in Chandigarh, I was 25 and I met somebody who was a really cool, like music producer, singer, my type, totally. I like creatives, right? I like people who have that like some kind of talent, something about them. So anyway, so then he had studied music in Manchester, actually. So we had that in common too. Like me being a British citizen, being born here, he studied music there. So we instantly had this like connection. And we started dating. And in India, you can't go around together like that. That's what they call it, like going around together. It's frowned upon. So his my family is a lot more modern, living overseas. So my parents were not trying to pressure us, but his side of the family, and obviously his parents live in Chandigarh, so they are they feel more of the pressure themselves. It's almost like they can't help it, right? They're again like just experiencing what is around them. So his parents are feeling the pressure of like his son is dating somebody very publicly. They're not trying to hide it. They're not trying to keep it on the down low. They're out and about together. And um it doesn't look good in the eyes of society, like they should get married. And my grandparents were not putting pressure. It was more like his kind of family inside. So they were putting pressure on us to get married. And so eventually we just succumbed to the pressure. And so after a year of dating, and that too, like, yeah, we're spending time together, but you don't really know somebody, right? If you're just like dating and seeing them here and there, you only really know somebody when you live with them. So we dated for a year. And then at the age of 26, we both kind of felt like we gave into the pressure. And we're like, well, we love each other. We're going to get married anyway. So maybe we just should. So it was kind of, there was no proposal. It was just like,
An agreement.
it was an agreement between him and I. We're like, okay, we will. And then we told his parents and they were so happy. Then we had our roka. So roka is like a ceremony between the boy's family and the girl's family and the boy and the girl where the children are promised to each other, right? So it's like you have this kind of formal ceremony. There's a bit of like some kind of I think there must have been some religious aspect there. Him and I are both from Sikh families. And then we're promised to each other. And then the girl is given some jewelry. And then I guess we give the boy something I can't remember, but something along those lines. And then you're promised to each other. So it's kind of like an engagement. And then we had a formal engagement party. And then a year later, we were married. So 1 year we were just planning the wedding. It's not like we were spending so much time together. We were busy planning the wedding. And also, like, we're obviously not living together at this point. So by 27, I think we're the same age. So yeah, we were married at 27.
Was it a big wedding?
Big fat Punjabi wedding.
How many people?
I remember at the reception, there were probably 1,000.
Bloody hell.
Yeah. And then
Wow.
the wedding, maybe 300, 400. I'm not sure, something like that. And you have the proper week-long ceremonies as well, right? You've got like the Mendi, Sangeet, you've got the like religious wedding ceremony in the Gurdwara. Then you have the actual like wedding celebration after. Then you've got the reception as well, which is like the next night. So it was a big fat Punjabi wedding. And then as a Westerner, I wanted to live independently and I wanted him and I to live on our own and get an apartment and just, have our own unit and really get to build. But again, cultural pressure dictated otherwise, that we move in with his parents into a joint family. And I really tried to resist the pressure. Him and I were looking at flats. He was trying to be accommodating for my wishes as well. But at the end of the day, I feel like a Punjabi boy always wants to please his parents. At the end of the day, there's something that like Punjabi boys just feel so much duty towards their parents. Respect, duty. They have that admiration and just, yeah, it's like I feel like it's very difficult for a Punjabi boy to go against his parents' wishes. So even though this boy was very rebellious in other ways, like with his career choices, with the way he dressed, lived his life, like, just everything. But in this situation, he really felt the pressure to live with the parents as well. And so then we ended up moving in with his parents and lived in a joint family.
Wow. And how did that go?
We got along fine. Like his parents and I got along great. In fact, we got along so well. And my husband at the time was very appreciative that I was so like open, like how I embraced that experience with an open heart and open arms. And I really like was so loving and, like he really appreciated that. I think my in-laws, my mother-in-law really wanted me to be like to take over her role as that like woman of the house. She was never a housewife. She was retired. She was, I think, a doctor, and her husband was a chartered accountant. So they were professionals. And but because she was retired, I think she kind of had this hope and dream for me to take over the house and run the house. And that was never a dream of mine, ever. I'm a career girl. I'm a working girl. I've got big ambitions. And they loved that about me. They loved that I was a respected journalist in in Chandigarh. They loved that. That was like the thing they loved most about me. And it's also the thing that I think irked them the most because it's like this dichotomy. It's like they love that I'm respected. They love that I have this incredible career. But then at the same time, they do want me to be this woman of the home. And I couldn't be both. Like I'm working 6 days a week. In India, you don't work 5-day weeks, you work 6-day weeks.
Mm.
So I couldn't be that. And yeah, I couldn't. So I think there was always that slight expectation that at some point sooner than later I'll take on that role. But in my mind, that was never a role that I would envision for myself.
Mm. Do you think people should be doing their own thing and just a partner should just live alone? Or do you believe in that community aspect? Like, because from as far back as we can go, is human lived in caves, in communities. You know, people live together. And it feels like sometimes there's an agenda. Like, I don't know if it's governments or councils, but it's like you should be alone. You should be living in your own place. This is how you should do things. And then things like mental health comes into it because you're not talking, you're not releasing, like living with parents and, you know, that Asian community sort of dynamic, it has worked for so many sort of
Hmm.
generations.
Yeah.
But obviously, it's like if you haven't done that before and you're used to your own
Mm.
space, if you've always lived sort of with big families and you're going into big families, quite natural.
Mm.
But when you're not if used to it or you haven't been taught that way, then it's like kind of going to prison.
Yeah, exactly. You summed it up perfectly. It's like because it wasn't how I was raised, like I wasn't raised in a joint family either. Yes, we had our grandparents come and stay with us for, a few months at a time here and there, but it was like we still had that, four-member family. My parents, my sister and I. Like it was always just the us. And then, my mom, me, my sister, like it was just us. My Nani Ji came to help us out for sure. She was my best friend at that time. It was, yeah, very special bond that we formed. So I completely agree, but I feel like it's different for every person. It's different for your desires. I think the problem arises when we do things that are not in alignment with what we truly desire. That's when it arises. That's when the conflict arises. And I know there's a lot of joint families that have a beautiful equation, and there's also so many that have very toxic equations, very toxic, where actually it's destroying those people who live in that household, where there's an unfair balance or where the daughter-in-law is being badly mistreated. It's so common. That's more common actually than probably everyone being happily ever after and harmonious.
I've heard that, oh, the mother-in-law makes stuff up and then feeds the son with it and saying this is
Yeah,
what
there's a
happened and
lot of
she's doing this,
politics.
and it's a bit like that's I'm flabbergasted when I hear these
Yeah.
stories. I'm like,
Yeah.
really? Why would she do that? Wouldn't she want her son to be happy? It's like this
Hmm.
trade-off that she doesn't want to lose a son. And is she taking my space, like that mother-son
Yeah.
bond as
It's
well?
like a resentment towards a daughter-in-law. And also, we have to remember that it's the mother-in-laws are also daughter-in-laws, right? So they've also been mistreated by their mother-in-law. So they're just repeating a cycle of a pattern of
Like a
behavior.
generational
They're just
trauma.
they're just it's a generational trauma. So they're treating their daughter-in-law how they were treated. That's all they know. And because that's just as it is and we don't question it, it carries on that way. So for me, I just wanted to be, I'm someone that actually really likes living on my own. I really do enjoy that independence. And I'm also extremely social. So I do then like to, tap in and meet and talk to people as well. It's not complete isolation, but I like to have that balance. So I can choose to just go to my safe space, my sanctuary, just hibernate, have that downtime, especially because I work with people. I work with, uplifting people. So I do want that time to myself as well, where I can just regroup, recharge, as much as being around people charges me, being alone also recharges me.
Mm. So, what happens when you are going through a breakup slash divorce? Family opinions, what's father saying, what's mum saying, what's grandparents saying, what's happened? Because in the Asian culture, that's like, you can't do it.
Yeah, yeah. So I never wanted to get divorced. I never got married to get divorced. Even though I've come from a divorced family, I never envisioned that for myself. I'm an eternal optimist, so I always think like everything is happily ever after. I always anticipate the best to happen. And so that's why when the best outcome didn't happen, it's so disappointing because I'm just like, always thinking the very best is always going to happen. But in the end, everything does happen for the best. Everything works out for the better, but you just can't see it at the time. So it was after 8 months of us being married that the marriage started to break down. I guess I was still in my trauma, like my childhood trauma, me not too immature to be in a serious relationship like that. Him and I were both too immature. We were just not ready for it. I was still traumatized by my upbringing because the first relationship that you see in your life is that of your parents. So that is what you think is the norm. So whatever fighting and stuff they would do, like for me, that's normal to scream, to yell, to curse. So if I was angry, and I would be quick to anger because that's all I'd seen. That's what I had seen. There was always fighting, there was always yelling, there was always just whole lot going on. And so for me, that was normal. So if I was angry, that's how I'd express myself. And he grew up in a more stable family environment. So for him, that was definitely not normal. So I know that took a toll on him. But neither of us were perfect. We both had our own shortcomings. We were doing the best we could given the circumstances. And I think after 8 months, he realized that this is not for him. This is not what he signed up for. Marriage is not for him. And so he ended up leaving. He was a musician, and so he went to Delhi, where you have more music opportunities. And he just ended up staying in Delhi, and I was still with his parents, living with his parents, because I thought that as a naive person, I believe at that time I must have been 28. I thought, everything is going to work out. He's going to come back. This is just a phase. He's going to come back. Like, of course, I didn't get married to get divorced. Like, there's no way. Like, he's going to come back. So, in my mind, I was so focused on that outcome. I convinced his parents as well that he was definitely going to come back. So, we were all like eagerly awaiting his return, thinking he's going to come back. And I thought, let me give him his space. He needs some time and space. So leave him to that in Delhi to like keep growing his career, making his music, and I'll patiently wait here whilst busy with my career as well. That's keeping me very busy. Um, and then I just kept waiting for him. And then after some time, he told his parents that it's a done deal for him. Like he's definitely not coming back. And then that's when the ball dropped for them and they're like, oh, wow, like this is really over. And so eventually I moved out and I moved back in with my grandparents.
You said you waited for him. How long was that?
A year or two. I really waited. I'm very loyal. You're a Taurus. You know it. We're Taurines. We are loyal to a fault. We really are. We are so loyal. Um, I felt like I got married to this guy. I took that seriously. I knew I wasn't perfect, but I still thought that we're going to work it out. Things are going to be fine. And
Nowadays,
yeah,
people don't wait 2 days for somebody. It's like it's over, it's done. Okay, 2 days, boom, it's over. Like they move on.
I'm not like that
They're seeing
though.
somebody else. It's like
Yeah.
the old school generation. We were from that loyalty. We would wait. We would.
I don't know if other people would have waited in my shoes. I feel like I am exceptionally loyal. Like Taurines, you know this being a Taurus, we are just very, very loyal. Like I used to be loyal to a fault, and I think that's a shadow side. Like now I would not be loyal to a fault at my own detriment. Now I would have a bit more sense of what is worthwhile, what is for my best interest. I'd have a bit more sense and I'd be able to like just kind of move forward. The loyalty will still be there, but not like I said, when I'm going to suffer as a consequence. So yeah, I waited for him, and then I moved back to my grandparents eventually. I That period was very stressful for me, very stressful. I underwent so much stress. I was internalizing it, not even realizing how much it was affecting me, to the point where I would get rashes on my skin. Because our stress manifests in disease, right? And in conditions and ailments. So I used to get like massive, like rashes on my face, like here, on my arms, like where the skin would be really, really raised and itchy. And I underwent so much stress for those couple of years during me waiting around, plus then awakening to the fact that it's actually over, coming to terms with that. It caused me so much internal stress that by the time I moved here, I was diagnosed with discoid lupus. So it's a form of lupus, which is an autoimmune disorder. And my form is it's a skin condition where your body is confused and it attacks your healthy skin cells, not realizing these are healthy, good cells. So they're attacking healthy cells. And then there's certain things that can aggravate this condition. So I ended up like sunlight is one of them. So when I first moved here, I was on a holiday in Greece, exposed to loads of sunlight. And when I got back, I had this like patch on the back of my head, and it was like raised skin, red and itchy. And I didn't know what it was. And I went to the GP and they're like, oh, maybe it's just a fungal infection or some kind of this or that. So they gave me like shampoos. It went wrongly diagnosed for 8 months, to the point where I ended up losing the hair on this patch on the back of my head permanently, to the point where the skin cells, the hair follicles are dead, so the hair doesn't grow back on that patch back there. And so that was a result of the stress, and then obviously it being wrongly diagnosed, so they couldn't give me the proper like creams to treat that, to go down. It would have gone down, gone away and healed and been fine. But yeah, so this was a result. But again, I don't now affirm I have this. I have this condition. The minute I change, I used to really focus on this. I have this condition. And I used to let that fear overwhelm me, and it became my reality. I kept getting these different raised patches, sometimes on my arms, sometimes on my neck, getting closer to my face, and I'm getting scared now. Oh my God, it's aesthetic. It's going to be on my face, all these things. And fearing it so much just provoked it. And because whatever you focus your attention on, that's what's going to expand. So if I keep affirming that I've got this disease or I've got this condition, and I keep letting that rule my life, that's what you become. That's what you provoke. So the minute I started working more on myself and my mindset and shifting my perspective and no longer claiming that, touch wood, I have not had any other flare ups.
How do you stop that thought? in your mind that, hey, I have no control right now. There's something attacking me. Somebody could be going through like cancer right now. Somebody can have a autoimmune disease. And it's this, especially if you're a control freak and you want to know where everything's at, all of a sudden something's attacking you. How do you block that thought of stop thinking about it? I've got this. Oh, science paper, medical form says I have this
Yeah.
condition. Why me? Why has this happened to me? And how do you block that thought? It's okay. No, it's fine. I'll be cool.
So self-awareness, it all comes down to self-awareness. So that's number one. So first, realizing that that's what you're doing. Because if you don't know that's what you're doing, you're going to do it on autopilot. So stopping yourself, checking yourself, your thoughts. First, check your thoughts, right? Because your thoughts then become your words, right? Your words then become your actions. Your actions create your reality. So it all starts with what we're thinking up here. Our mind is the biggest creator of disease. So you have to catch yourself, catch those thoughts. Think to yourself, what I focus on expands. So if I'm focusing on fear, what am I doing? I'm expanding that fear. I'm creating more of that fear. So why don't I shift my focus, shift my perspective on something I can control, something that is positive, something that is good. So instead of looking at the fear of something or the lack of something or the pain of something, what is going well in your life? What is it about your health that's well? You can see, I can hear, I've got a healthy body. I was still weightlifting, I'm walking, I'm running, I'm smiling. Focus on the good things and those will expand. Focus on the positive because gratitude will 120 million% change your life. If we're always focusing on the fear, the lack, the negativity, that is our reality. If you're focusing on all the blessings that you have, the abundance that you have, all the things that are going right in your life, that is your reality. So it's a mindset shift. So start with a gratitude list. If it's health concerns, let's say, every single morning, write down 3 things about your health you are grateful for. Do it again at lunchtime. Do it again before you sleep. If you do this every day for 30 days, it will become habitual. Then you won't need to write it down. You'll be thinking constantly about all the good things that you have to celebrate in your life about your health. It could be if you struggle with self-love, then every day, same thing, 3 things you love about yourself at AM, in the morning, afternoon, and evening before sleeping. So that's it. Also, the first 20 minutes when you wake up, your brain is in the theta state. And the theta state is where your brain is more suggestible, it's more impressionable, it's less resistant. Your conscious mind is less resistant. So you're able to reprogram your mind as well. So if you, first thing when you wake up, those first 20 minutes, get out of bed, go to the bathroom, drink a glass of water, sit down with your morning cup of tea, whatever it is, do these affirmations, do this gratitude list. Because you can reprogram your mind. Our brains have the power of neuroplasticity. If you do this every day, neuroscientists have shared with us that if you do this every day, if you visualize something, if you repeat an affirmation every single day, the repetition, doing it day in and day out for 25 to 30 days, you grow a new neural pathway. So essentially, you are changing your reality. You're changing the way you think. And like I said, your thoughts are what spark everything in your reality. So you're changing it, and it all starts up here.
Wow.
I know it's a lot to process.
Because science doesn't like, obviously, you say new pathways. I've heard things like that, but science doesn't say that, oh, if you've got a genetic disease and this is what's going to happen to you based on 100 people, 70 people had this, you're in that kind of category, to then go and think that, hey, if I'm thinking something different, it won't be me. It's like you're wishing almost. That's how people might see it.
So we're constantly manifesting 24/7. We're constantly creating our reality because what we don't realize, people think manifesting is like, oh, I'm going to get this Porsche or this mansion or become a millionaire, and that's manifesting. Manifesting is having an awareness that you are the creator of your reality, that you have whatever you think eventually does become your reality. So if you're constantly thinking about tripping, let's say, you're going to trip because you're constantly thinking about that and you create that reality. Because again, like I said, the thought eventually leads to the action. So if you're thinking I'm going to trip, then you're like, I'm going to trip, I'm going to trip. You're saying it, then again, it's going to happen. You're going to misstep some way or the other. If you think that, you're going to fail an exam or, that is, again, you're going to, because it's like you're setting yourself up for failure by having those negative thoughts. So if you're focusing on the positive, and remember, our mind is what causes so many diseases in our body as well. It's the stress, it's the worry, it's the anxiety. I am living proof that I was diagnosed officially with something after almost a year of them giving me tests and allergy tests and this and that, and doing taking blood tests and samples and biopsies. I was officially formally diagnosed with something, and when I stopped giving power to that, I freed myself from the effects of it. I'm not to say that I don't still have that or whatever. I just don't claim it, own it, focus on it, and touch wood. It's not flared up or been an issue. And that's only happened through the power of my perspective, shifting where I put my attention, shifting what I think about, how I speak, how I think, how I feel. I've experienced it firsthand. So if I've been able to overcome a health ailment by changing my perspective, other people can improve the quality of their lives too.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, of
That was really
course.
good. So tell me, life in Great Britain. You hosted a panel.
Yeah, so I've done loads of motivational talk, self empowerment workshops here. As I said, my niche is age empowerment. So my mission is really to help people rewrite the narrative around aging so they can take their power back, turn that fear of aging into excitement. And I know that's a huge mission because majority of us, all of us, fear aging in some way. We all have some deep rooted fear that is a result of conditioning and, standards, norms, all of that. So it's a huge ask, but my greatest joy in the work that I do is when people say to me, you're actually making me excited about aging. I actually don't fear it anymore. And I share with my friends anytime they're sharing their fears of aging with me, I share with them exactly what I learned during your workshop, what I learned during your talk. I share that with them. And that to me is so rewarding because it's like I'm on a mission globally to help people change their perspective and mindset around aging. So instead of viewing aging as a source of or as something that's going to limit you, how can you view it as something that's going to empower you to live your best life? We get better with age. So These workshops that I deliver, I have worked with like Stella McCartney, Soho House. I've delivered loads of talks. And when I do my age talks at Soho House, packed rooms, and you get, interestingly, a room full of people 20s, 30s, 40s, so all age ranges. It's not like people think that this work that I do is going to speak to 50, 60, 70. No, it's actually speaking to the generations that I've lived through because I've lived through those fears and I've overcome them. I've come out the other side empowered. So I'm attracting those people. My energy is very youthful. Again, I'm attracting those people, and it just shows what an epidemic this is. Everybody faces it. So, King's College, I did a talk as well for students and their fears around aging, because we're told by the age of 30, we need to have everything figured out. And these students are like 25, right? A lot of them that who, they're doing their masters or whatever, and they are so fearful. It's paralyzing when you think that by the age of 30, you're meant to have your own home, married, thinking about having a kid on the way. You're meant to have a car. It's like this formula for what you have, the expectations. When I turned 30, I remember I was coming out of a divorce, moved from India back to London, starting my life all over again from scratch, quit my career in journalism, had no career, didn't know what the heck I was going to do. I had nothing. I remember how paralyzing and crippling that tick box was because I wasn't fulfilling any of it. And it took me so much longer to restart my life because I thought I had to do all these things and I was failing at all of them. And so my talks that I do really are for the purpose of empowering people to overcome those fears. So, Soho House, there's Snapchat, I've worked with Sweaty Betty, Face Gym, Oto Wellbeing, Romans, loads of really big brands I work with.
Do you get them collaborations?
So it's a mix. Oh God, it's a bit of a mix, but it's like a lot of them have approached me because they've seen the work that I do featured in media as well, because I've been featured in like all of the top publications, top lifestyle fashion magazines, like Elle magazine, Marie Claire, Metro, The Sun, The Observer, Fabric magazine, Condé Nast Traveler. Like my work has been featured in all of these. So it's a mix of people approaching me because they've seen my work out there, or it's outreach as well.
How do you get your work shown?
Shown in media, you mean?
Yeah, so how do they have the opportunity to see you and what you're doing? Like, where are you putting yourself out?
So it's a variety. It could be like if I'm doing a talk somewhere and a journalist happens to be doing a story on that topic, they might see my event advertised on Eventbrite. Then someone might reach out to me, or I do outreach as well. I might invite someone from the media to one of my talks as well. So it's a mix of people contacting me and me outreaching to them and seeing if they would like to come along to experience my work and what I do. So it's a bit of a mix. I do one-to-one mentoring as well. So one of my programs is finding your purpose and turning it into a personal brand, which is what I've created for myself. Moon Onyx Starr, motivational speaker, self-empowerment expert. This is a personal brand. Or finding their purpose and turning that into, another type of profession. But there's so much power in a personal brand. And I believe every single person should have a personal brand because no one is you. That is your superpower. That's what's going to make you stand out. And that is how you compete with an oversaturated market, is because no one is you. So that is your strength and you play to that strength. So I help people find that strength, find that purpose, and then package it into their own personal brand. Then I also teach them how can they get featured in media, and all organically. Everything I've done till date has been organic. I haven't invested any money in my business. It's all been organic. So I know what works, what doesn't work. So I have a set formula of how people can replicate what I've done for themselves. So how they can work with top brands, how they can get featured in top publications, how they can, create a name for themselves and just kill it.
Amazing. How do you adapt your talks? So when you're doing Stella McCartney, it's a very high end sort of luxury brand, and then you're going into universities and you're speaking to maybe a different crowd sort
Mm.
of thing. How do you adapt it? Because that audience, you need to keep them engaged.
Absolutely. So I'll always tweak things. So if it's Stella McCartney, I'll be doing something for her team. So I know it needs to have more of that corporate workshop angle. So more about like team bonding and sharing and collaborating and connecting amongst the team as well. So I'll always encourage them to do like activities where they're able to engage with one another and just build a stronger, more resilient team. I'll also make sure that the points that I'm conveying are relevant for teams, something that's going to empower them, not just individually, but as a team as well. Something that's going to help them show up as the best versions of themselves on a personal and professional level. And then if I'm going to universities, then I just keep the person in mind who I'm speaking to. So for students, I'm addressing concerns that are really unique to them for their age group. So I'm changing, the focal point a little bit, but the actual meaning and message is the same. It just slight tweak if it's a corporate workshop versus university, or the age range is, different, just ever so slight tweaks. But otherwise it's quite set. It's universal what I'm teaching here. So, and then I also, you asked about the panel talk. So
Yes.
I also do organize panel talks. I wanted there to be more representation for South Asians. So, being a South Asian myself and coming across so many South Asians absolutely killing it in London. Like, we are immigrants, right? We travel from India, from South Asia, from different parts of South Asia, far across the world. We travel far and wide. We settle into that new culture and country. And we don't just survive, but we thrive. Literally, we are just the best. Like, I'm honestly so proud to be South Asian. And I saw that it was South Asian Heritage Month, and there wasn't like enough. There were a lot of events, but me being a member of Soho House, I was like, I would love to see Soho House organizing something celebrating people from South Asian backgrounds, people who have overcome challenges, people who are successful, who have worked really hard or really smart to get where they are, and people from all walks of life. So I had pitched to Soho House. I was already doing talks for them on age empowerment and other self empowerment topics. And I wanted to do something which was forced in honor of South Asian Heritage Month. So I ended up pitching that. They were so supportive. They're like, absolutely, Moon, let's go for it. So I put together a female panel because there's not actually enough panels of just South Asian women coming together, stronger together. So I put together that panel. We did that. It was a great hit. And then so much so where Diwali was coming about a few months later, and so I also said, can we do one for Diwali? And they're like, absolutely. And Diwali is all about celebrating the triumph of light over darkness. So I was like, let me put together a panel of incredible people who have overcome challenges, who are really rebellious, who are doing something completely off the beaten path and track of what we're expected to as South Asians. So on that last panel at Soho House, we had Aisha Hussein, who's a stunt woman. She's a stunt woman for Hollywood films, a weapons artist. She's like sword artist. She's just incredible. She's such a badass. Then I had Sarah Shakil, who is a Pakistani artist, iconic. She's iconic now with what she's achieved. She's like known as like the crystal artist. She's just made waves globally. She's working with some of the biggest brands in the world on huge campaigns. Chance the Rapper, she designed his album cover. She just crystal and glitterifies everything. So Sarah, and then Juggy D, who has again, like a singer, a Punjabi rock star, who's sober as well. So people who are just doing amazing things. So I'm very proud of my heritage as well. So I want to keep doing more to promote that. And a lot of people like look at me and they would never guess that I'm South Asian. And not only am I moved back to India, even though I had a British passport, a US passport, and New Zealand citizenship. And I decided at 24 to move back to India to really immerse myself in my culture and my roots. So I'm absolutely proud and, in love with my culture and heritage. I just want to keep representing and showing up for us.
What's next?
Ooh, what is next? I just want to keep spreading my message of age empowerment. I want to really spread this global. I want to, just spread this message far and wide, empower as many people to turn their fear of aging into excitement. Write a book for sure. Self-empowerment book. Absolutely. That's on the cards too. Um, I'm just so open to opportunities of any kind. I want to keep doing my motivational speaking. That's my real passion. So just doing more talks on stages across the world. I get really energized by large audiences of
Really?
people. Oh, I thrive. For me to do talks with small, few handful of people, it's more draining for me. I get energized by energy. So that like fills me with life. It wasn't always the case. A few years ago, when I was a much more unhealed, insecure, less confident version of myself, I wouldn't have this same self-belief. But now, because my self-belief is there, I've done so much work on myself, I only see the opportunities growing and getting bigger and bigger, and I feed off that energy. So more talks. I'd love to do stuff in television as well. Who knows, but anything is possible, and I'm open to any and every opportunity.
You've been absolutely amazing, Moon. Is there a final message that you'd like to give the people at home?
Absolutely. I would say if we are talking about age empowerment, one of the first things you can do to start changing the way you view aging, you're only as old or young as you think you are, right? It's all a mindset. So you're only as older or as young as you think you are. So start by changing your language. I personally do not use the word old anymore. Throughout this entire conversation, you might have observed I've never said at 7 years old. I said at the age of 7, because old has a negative connotation. So if I'm saying I'm 41 years old, I'm putting myself in this box. Old means decline, expiration. It means lacking energy, right? It's something very negative. So I've removed that from my vocabulary. I now say I'm 41. So, language, it's the words you use, it's your body language, it's your energetic language. So, I'm like, I'm 41 and I'm standing in that with pride, with excitement, with confidence. So, let your I'd say one of my top tips, which I teach in my workshops, is definitely this: start by changing the language you use around aging. Don't say, I'm getting older. Say, it's my 30th. I'm entering a new chapter of life. Say I'm 30 years wiser. Put together your own vocabulary list, your own list of words that are going to empower you. So that I would say that's a great kind of takeaway. And I have a workshop coming up on the 18th of January, which is a Saturday in London, all on age empowerment. It's a New Year workshop. So it's time to really start the year off on the right note. It's time to make 2025 our best year yet. So come along to my age empowerment workshop. And I'd definitely love to have you there, Sean, as well. Yeah, come along to that workshop. And I'm going to, by the end of that workshop, everyone is going to change their mindset about aging, guaranteed.
Love that. And if somebody wants to follow you, to follow your journey, what you're doing, when you're doing events, how do they do that?
So Instagram is probably the best way because I'm always posting on there. It's at moon.onyx, Onyx, and then .star with a double R. So Instagram, and if people are not on Instagram, I know some people have deactivated social media, so then they can hit me up on my email as well, or website. Website is not updated at the moment, so I'd say email is best. moon@moononyxstar.com is my email. I'm on LinkedIn under, again, Moon Onyx Starr. So yeah, any of those channels.
Amazing. Thank you very much for today. And that's it for today, guys. I hope you really enjoyed that episode. Now, don't forget to smash the subscribe button if you haven't already. Leave Moon Onyx Star a comment if you have one. I promise I'll get that message replied to. And yeah, we'll see you soon. If anyone's going through anything in life, guys, just always remember you're not alone. Sometimes we're going through a hard time in our own lives, but there's people who have been through stuff that you're going through, and they're the people who you need to relate with, and you will find somebody who can help you out of that position to help you on that success path in your life as well. So I hope that really helped you. And until next time,